Hey everyone, Mike Garringer, Senior Director of Research and Quality at Mentor here. Thank you for joining us for the very first episode of our new interview series in conjunction with our new newsletter called the Mentoring Research Roundup. We're very excited to be bringing this to you every quarter. The newsletter is going to feature summaries of hot off the press research and new findings that we think will illuminate your mentoring work with young people. And accompanying every issue, we're going to sit down with some of the thought leaders and really sharpest minds in mentoring research and beyond to talk to them about their work, what they're learning about the art and science of mentoring, and to help you figure out how to apply research evidence to your work with young people. So, if you want to hear some really smart folks talking shop about mentoring, you've come to the right place. We've got a couple of great guests here for our first interview in this series. And keep your eye on the Mentor website in the months to come. We're going to do these quarterly, so there'll be a lot more interviews and research roundups happening throughout 2026 and into 2027. So thank you for joining us and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mentoring Research Roundup. I'm Mike Garringer, the Senior Director of Research at Mentor. And I'm joined today by two awesome guests. I'm very excited to have both of them here. One of them is a newer person in the world of mentoring research. Megyn, I hope you don't mind me describing you as a newer voice okay. in the mentoring field. But Megyn Jasman is the Assistant Director at the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. You are also the Director of Partner Success at Mentor Pro. So for those of you who don't know what Mentor Pro is, it's a really outstanding software platform that's used by mentoring programs to kind of get real-time information about how mentees are doing to mentors and program staff. We'll talk a little bit more about Mentor Pro, I think, later in this conversation today. So thank you for joining us, Megyn. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
We're also joined by somebody who I don't think needs much of an introduction, but I'll do one anyways, and that is Dr. Jean Rhodes. Dr. Rhodes is I want to make sure I get this right because these are funding your time at UMass, the Frank L. Boyden Professor and the Roy J. Zuckerberg Endowed Leadership Chair in the Department of Psychology at UMass Boston. And I think most relevant for our conversation today, you're actually the head and the mastermind behind the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring and the publisher of the Chronicle of Evidence-Based Mentoring, which is one of my favorite sources for new research and really thought-provoking articles. Jean, I always appreciate how you kind of poke the mentoring field with a stick and make us think a little bit more deeply about our work. So, Dr. Jean Rhodes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm a huge fan of you, going all the way back to when you first joined the field. So it's really exciting to be talking to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you here after all this time. So we've asked both of you to join us today because you're both co-authors on a fantastic new paper that came out not too long ago called Beyond the Mentor Youth Dyad, the Role of Parents and Mentoring Program Staff in Predicting Volunteer Mentor Persistence. And I really loved this paper. The first time I read it, I was like, I need to talk to you more about it. I think it's really interesting to take a look at what's happening and kind of the other relationships around a mentor and youth pairing. And so we'll get into this paper as we go in this interview. Megyn, I want to start with you, though, a little bit. I'm always fascinated by new scholars in our field, and I was just curious maybe if you could talk a little bit about how you came to be interested in mentoring research and where you want to take your career. What's of interest to you in the world of mentoring research?
Yeah, thank you. And honestly, I owe a lot of it to Jean. So I graduated my bachelor's in psychology in 2021. I was very involved in research labs and independent research at my university, and originally wanted to go actually and get a PhD in clinical psychology. I was very interested in research in academia, but also wanted to explore therapies like individual type treatment. And as I was applying to programs, I actually came across Jean in her lab and spoke with Jean. And it's actually the first exposure I had to the community psychology space, which is very different than clinical psychology in that focuses more on communities, prevention, and systemic change rather than that individual treatment that you see with counseling, with clinical psychology, and with the typical therapy that we associate psychology with. And I learned a little bit more about the work with mentoring and paraprofessionals and how can we leverage these types of people to address gaps, not just in mental health care, but then also in academic and career development spaces, social capital. And this was just the first time I've had exposure to it. So it was definitely very eye-opening to me. And then around the same time, I also reconnected with my undergraduate peer mentor who was pursuing her community psychology doctorate at the same time too at DePaul University, and kind of just both of them was just a sign for me, like this is a good route for me. And through just talking to Jean, ended up starting as the lab manager in Jean's lab, doing very secretarial type work, but then also working as a research assistant with some of her students. I've met so many people in the field and just really got interested in the topic of mentoring and supportive networks. And then even I decided to pursue further education in community psychology too, and got my master's, which I graduated 2 years ago with in community psychology. And my master's thesis was based on mentoring as well. So I've had very different changes in my career trajectory over time, and I'm very happy where I landed.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And it's wonderful to hear so much kind of mentoring infused into your academic journey, right? So it sounds like you had a peer mentor at another school, and then, Jean, you've served as a mentor to so many young scholars over the years, and it's just wonderful to see, kind of the topic of our research kind of infused into how we go about doing it in our own careers. So very cool to see. I want to get into the Beyond the Dyad paper because, like I said, I found it to be a really interesting look at kind of some of the other relationships that surround a mentor-youth relationship. And so I was hoping, Megyn, you could just talk a little bit about kind of why you decided to do this study, how it kind of came to be, and what you were hoping to learn.
Yeah, well, I guess to start, our lab has just long-standing relationships with a lot of Big Brothers Big Sisters programs. And one thing that we do know from the literature is just that there's a big problem with retaining mentors, that a lot of them, and I believe one of them cited about 35% of matches are ending prematurely. And we're really motivated with how can we prevent that from happening, because I know Jean and her colleagues have done a lot of research about some of the negative outcomes that come with premature termination of relationships. So we really feel an urgency to understand what drives that early termination. And just also building off of other models that other scholars have done, we are very interested in the role of family and program staff in match premature termination. So we really wanted to look at what are mentors themselves from their perspective, citing as reasons that they're leaving, and then how we can use that information to foster longer enduring relationships. And we actually were approached by a specific Big Brothers Big Sisters program who had this really awesome rich data set and asked for us to take a look at it, help analyze it, help make sense of some of the things that mentors are saying, and then come up with a list of recommendations for them. And that's really where this project stemmed from.
Excellent. So it sounds like this actually came from a quality improvement kind of point of view from the program itself. I guess I'll just ask both of you, how common is it for direct service providers, programs to approach you and say, I've got all this data I've collected, help me make sense of it? Is that something that Jean, you've done a lot in your career, or
Yeah,
is it
actually,
a common ask of your center?
yeah, it's a very common ask, and it's an incredible ask because I almost think like if you think about like environmental conservation, there's data conservation. People are constantly collecting data, including you, Mike. You've collected incredible data, surveys of the field. And then for us to be able to take our lens and maybe advance it even further has been really exciting. In fact, that's how my career in mentoring, one of the ways it got started was Jean Grossman from Public Private Ventures years ago approached me, and they had just done a landmark evaluation of Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, the first one, and said, hey, I've got this huge data set. Are you interested? And I was a young assistant professor at Illinois. I was like, yeah. And I would say I probably built my tenure case on that. And then that's just continued over the years where, the center has become kind of like a dataverse is the word for it. Like we retain a lot of data sets and analyze them. And it's been the fodder for a lot of dissertations and master's theses.
Great. Yeah. So any program out there that's watching this, if you're sitting on, 10, 15 years of well collected program data, obviously if it's, garbage in, garbage out, but if you've got a good data set, there's always scholars and folks that are willing to kind of work with it and maybe give you some insights back. So I want to get into kind of what you found. Let's not keep our audience in suspense here about the findings of your study. I guess, the good news is that when you looked at the reasons these matches were closing and closing maybe early, most of them seem to be kind of unavoidable things. The mentor got a new job and moved away, or there was some other kind of unexpected life circumstance. But you did find some interesting things that either kind of predicted whether these relationships would last or maybe were signs that things were not going great and they were headed for trouble. So could you talk a little bit about some of those correlations that you found?
Yeah, one of the biggest findings is that we were able to create three different groups for reasoning that mentors ended their match prematurely. So one being external factors that such as like mentors moving away, time commitment changes, maybe the mentor started graduate school and just wasn't able to commit anymore. So external reasons out of control. And we also had match related reasons. So related to maybe not being the best fit, not having the best chemistry for a mentoring relationship. And then number three, parent and staff related. So meaning not great relationships with the parents, or they didn't feel like they had the support from their match support specialist. So we were able to break it down into those three groups. And actually what we saw is that the majority of the cited reasons, specifically 65%, were external factors, which is definitely reassuring. Like a lot of it is outside of the control of the mentors. Life happens, things happen. But something that is probably more important that we found is that in terms of actual match length, like how long the match did last, the strongest predictor of it was the mentor's relationship with the mentee's parent or guardian. So meaning that mentors who felt like they had a stronger relationship, felt like the family and the mentor worked together as good thought partners and collaborated on the mentee's success. In those instances is where we saw the match last longer, which is telling us that, okay, maybe external factors is being reported more often, but it seems like what's actually might be more important is the relationship with the parents.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but that relationship with the parent and caregiver was even a stronger predictor than their relationship that the mentor had with like the program staff. And I would have assumed that, if I'm not getting the support I need from my match coordinator or whatever that person is called, that I would have frustrations with the program overall, right? And feel unsupported. But I think you found that it was actually the relationship with that caregiver was actually a stronger predictor than even dissatisfaction with the program as a whole. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
I would just say that that's exactly correct. It's almost like that we could interpret it as if mentors have a good relationship with the family, it might be able to overcompensate for some of the other issues like external factors or some program related issues. But if you're not having a strong relationship with the family, it could undermine everything. So
Yeah.
sorry, what would you like to add to that?
Oh, I just wanted to add that there was this kind of well-known meta-analysis around child psychotherapy that was done by University of South Florida psychologist Mark Carver. And he found the relationship with the parents was as strong a predictor as the relationship with the youth themselves, that it is just so key. And it really relates back to also Tom Keller's work, where he said, in any mentoring relationship, there's the mentor and the mentee, but then there's the mentor and the staff, the mentor and the parents. And, all of those dyads are what really create the conditions for positive change.
Yeah, and I think it's imperative that programs pay attention to all those other relationships and to their own role in this, right? If your
Right.
own match support people are not checking in as frequently, or if the advice they're giving isn't as good, it's one of the reasons we added a chapter on caregiver engagement to the new elements of effective practice. Where like, if caregivers are on board and making these relationships happen, then it's really difficult to get to where you want to with the outcomes of the program. You mentioned that this was kind of in service of helping this organization strengthen what they were doing. So I guess I'll ask, what did they wind up maybe doing, or in terms of, recommendations to them, and what advice would you have for other programs about how to kind of get out in front of this and make sure that that mentor caregiver relationship is strong?
I would say just the biggest takeaway is that we need to make sure we're incorporating families into the mentoring relationship more. We need to think of the family as central, not just peripheral to the relationship, and really leverage those match support specialists as liaisons or bridges between the mentoring program or the mentor themselves and the family. Things like creating shared communication between them, making sure everyone's on the same page, and then being able to troubleshoot problems as they arise, but then also trying to prevent some of those problems. So having sit down meetings more often and just involving the family more into the relationship.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit around, a lot of times mentors frame themselves as kind of rescuing the child in a kind of a weird way, and as opposed to a collaborator that's another support for the family. And so they kind of maybe send signals to parents that, here, don't worry, I'll fix everything. And so we have to do a lot of, I think upfront training around humility and cultural humility, and getting the average age of the mentors in this particular study was in their late 20s, and the parents are older, and so the parents might not take too well to someone coming in and telling them how to do things, and from a different maybe race and class. Most of the mentors were white, and most of the mentees being served were non-white, and so there's a lot of, I think, cultural stuff that we need to further unpack, but it speaks to the work of Tori and others in our field who have really tried to kind of get at those cultural dynamics. At the same time, we also saw from the reports of the mentors that there's frustrations. They go to pick up the child and no one's home. The parents aren't responding to texts or phone calls. And they may interpret that as, hey, I'm giving up my precious time, and the mentor can't even be bothered to, the parent can't even be bothered to help facilitate this. And so I do think that dynamic is really important to unpack and be really clear about. And I think the caseworker has the key role in that, in kind of like helping the mentor interpret silence, helping the parent, understand the frustration a mentor might feel, and all of that.
Yeah, those are all excellent points, Gene, and it really underscores something that I think about a lot in mentoring programs in particular, in that these are services that often bring together very different people from a
Yeah.
community. And in some ways, America doesn't have a lot of that kind of
Yeah.
interaction anymore. We tend to segregate ourselves along, different race and class lines. And yet here you have this program that's intentionally kind of knocking down
Yeah.
those walls, but it can get very messy. I mean, we are a fairly opinionated people here in
Yes.
America about others, right? And so I think it's everything you said around just setting good expectations up front and training, preparing them for, hey,
Yeah.
there's going to be some bumpy moments, but
Yeah.
keep your eye on the prize here, which is that your child needs a relationship, and we got to make this work, right? And
Well,
so, um,
just on the other side of what you just said, Mike, it's really, as you said, one of these rare things where we can get up close. People can get up close to other cultures and income groups in ways that there's not that many affordances in the world for that. And so if it's done right, it can give you a window into a complicated issue that you may have had very rigid views about. And now all of a sudden it's hard to just say we should cut taxes because people are, or whatever, when you see what it does to a school, what it does to a community, and those kinds of things. And so I think that the upside is so strong that it's worth working through these very complicated dynamics.
absolutely. I like to think that things like mentoring are one of the things that will help this nation kind of heal
Heal.
a little
Yeah,
bit, honestly. But it requires a lot of work and a lot of patience.
exactly.
But yeah, I've had many people say, like, I used to think all kinds of things about these kids or these families, and then I mentored one, or
Yeah,
my, and then I was like, I'm
it's harder.
embarrassed.
And
Embarrassed I used to
also,
think that. So
as a mom, my kids are older now, but if I had my teenage mom years, it might be threatening. Like if all of a sudden my daughter is opening up more to a mentor than to me, and I may not express it, but I may make it harder for them to meet. So I can see all these that transcend culture, but maybe get into the mother-child bond or the father-son bond that make it hard.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate the way you were able to take this data set and kind of bring new meaning out of it. I think it's
Yeah.
something that really teaches our field something valuable. So, congrats on this paper. We featured it in our first edition of our new mentoring research roundup. So there's a little blurb about it that folks can read on the mentor site as well. I wanted to ask both of you, Megyn, I'll start with you. Kind of what's next for you in your scholarship or in your career path here? Is there anything you're working on that you're excited to share with us?
Oh yeah. Well, I've talked a lot already about how my trajectory in psychology has changed. And something that I will say is I got the awesome opportunity recently to even shift more towards practitioner work in mentoring. My biggest role right now, I would say, is that I'm working as the director of partner success at Mentor Pro. And what's very different with that compared to my previous experience is that I'm working one-on-one with these programs every day. People who partner with Mentor Pro, I'm on constant meetings with them. I'm providing consultation, learning a little bit more about some of the challenges they're having. How can we leverage our software platform, but then also how can we leverage Gene's knowledge and what we know about mentoring to support these programs? And it's been super rewarding. I love meeting all of these programs and hearing about the awesome work that they're doing in a way that I never really anticipated that this was a role I would step into. So I've been enjoying it a lot, but I know Gene can talk a lot more about some of the research studies we have coming out soon.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad you're welcome to my world of like helping people do their work better, right? And you certainly have an awesome software platform to help with that. Gene, since Megan teed
Well,
you up here, do you want to talk a little bit about
before we
Mentor Pro and
Before we move off Megan, I just want to say that I will talk about Mentor Pro, but Megan is the secret sauce that makes Mentor Pro a success. Everybody who ever talks about Mentor Pro just talks about Megan, and so it's true. And so it really is. It's kind of goes back to our paper that you have to have those good on the ground relationships. It can't just be kind of a conceptual thing. You have to keep it together through hard work and understanding the nuances and the difficulties. So the things that I'm working on or we're working on, we have some papers coming out. One is based on Megan's master's thesis on motivation of mentors. And it's fascinating. And it's showing that mentors who have more nuanced motivations, it's not just I want to save somebody, but I also want to maybe build my career credentials, actually have longer, stronger relationships, and their mentees have better outcomes. So that paper is coming out. I'm working with, I have trouble pronouncing it, but a Dutch collaborator, Jan Stens, to do what's called an umbrella meta-analysis. And it's going to be every study ever. So it's like 120 evaluations. We're also doing one on group mentoring and other ones. So a series of meta-analyses are coming out. So that's on the research side. And then, of course, what really has been consuming is trying to figure out how to get all that research and instantiate it in the platform. And the platform is, we're using, 3 decades of research to train mentors to make sure that there's a lot of communication on the platform. So it's a evidence-based platform for mentors and mentees to connect via text, via check-ins and goal setting and training and all of that. And as we talked about, Mike, beginning to explore how we can use AI as a coach for the mentors, not to talk to the mentees, but to kind of be able to bring mentors the right research at the moment they need it, to be able to kind of summarize things, to make them, kind of cognitive offloading, you might call it, and testing whether that or not that's a viable platform. The other thing is brand new, hot off the press. We are now a state certified trainers of community health workers who want specialization in therapeutic mentoring. And so the registration is open right now, but if people want to become therapeutic mentors, they can actually get insurance coverage for their time because it's certified by the state and it's taught by a community health worker and myself. So those are the two main things outside of the ongoing research.
Yeah, well, thank you for telling us about those. I'm sure folks can find more information about all of those on the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring website and at the Mentor Pro website. I really hope that therapeutic mentoring model gets adopted nationally because it's an excellent way of, I think, getting some much needed support to folks who really need it. And I think our mental health infrastructure in this country is a little lagging behind. So it's a great way to kind of boost the support that's available in communities. And then for, I encourage folks to check out Mentor Pro. I'm really impressed, Gene, by the way you've built up that platform. It started off, it's kind of let's get some kind of real-time feedback about how the mentee is doing, but you've built it out, as you said, into a training platform, a data platform for evaluation purposes. It's got a lot of features and it's a really excellent tool for the field. So thanks for letting us know about that as well. And you've got a lot of papers coming out. Some of these meta-analyses sound pretty interesting. So maybe we'll have you back for an interview here in not too long. Looking forward to reading that stuff when it comes out. I always want to end these interviews with like what I call the fun question, because we spend all this time talking shop and talking about serious youth things. But I always like to peel back the layers on research guests and, kind of let our field get to know you as just people, as fun individuals, and have kind of the insight into who you are that I often get through our relationships. So I've got a silly question that I will ask you. And I think this time around, I want to ask, what is one musical artist or concert that you wish you would have seen? Or maybe just haven't seen yet. So what's on your wish list for fun music? Megyn, you want to go first?
Sure, and I'm sure Jean knows exactly what I'm going to say.
You can show your tad.
I am a huge Beatles fan. I always say I was born in the wrong generation. I love the Beatles music. I have had the honor to see both Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney in concert and have had the opportunity to meet Sir Paul McCartney personally. But I would give a lot to be able to go back to 1963 and see a live Beatles concert.
That is an excellent answer. And I'm happy to hear someone your age reference the Beatles and loving them. My own kids describe the Beatles as kind of mid. And I'm like, no, time out. They're not mid. Come on, it's the Beatles.
I listen to the 60s, 70s, and 80s music more than I do modern music. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't think I can top that answer, Mike. We'll just leave it there.
Okay. All right, Gene, I'll let you off the hook for that one. I thought about this question for myself, and I was tempted to go with like Led Zeppelin back in their heyday, because I think that would be pretty interesting. But I am an old raver at heart. I've been to a lot of, I'm a big electronic music fan, techno. And I got to pick, I think, Daft Punk from their Alive tour in 2006 or 7. That was the one where they came out on the big pyramid made of LED lights and blew everyone's mind. There's actually a live album of that tour that sounds like the funnest concert you've ever been to. And I've always heard that, and I was around. I could have gone to it. I just was, broken lazy. So, well, Megyn, you had a great answer there. The Beatles up on that rooftop, maybe towards the end of their career, that would have been pretty good too. So.
It's a dream.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to learn more about Megyn's work, this paper we discussed, everything Gene's up to, you can do that on evidencebasedmentoring.org. That's the Chronicle of Evidence-Based Mentoring's website. And I encourage folks to go check that out. And keep your eyes on the Mentor website for more issues of this. We're going to be doing these interviews and newsletters quarterly, so look for more guests in the future. Maybe we'll have both of you back to discuss some new things, but really appreciate you joining us today, and hope you have a great summer, and take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Research Roundup. Thanks. Bye.